Well, let's get on with one, though, as like the traveler, I am underage to drink because I am 16 at this time. But how about we talk about the one who loves to talk about wine and has a smooth voice in all of Genshin Impact for localized languages? That's why you read the title, we are talking about Kaeya. Kaeya Albrecht is a playable cryo character in Genshin Impact. Kaeya is a cavalry captain in the Knights of Favonius. He is held in high regard by the people of Mondstadt, even with all his eccentricities and secrets. His full name is Kaeya Albrecht. He is a male character in Genshin Impact, and his weapon is a sword, while his element is cryo. Kaeya's birthday is November 30th. Constellation is Pablo of Celis. Kaeya, unlike a lot of other characters, has two nations, those being Mondstadt and Conria. Kaeya has affiliation with the Knights of Favonius and formerly had an affiliation with Conria. Kaeya's special dish is fruity skewers, a variant of the chicken mushroom skewer. Kaeya's voice actors are Josie Montana McCoy in English, Yi Sung in Chinese, Kosuke Torinomi in Japanese, and Jun Do-won in Korean. Kaeya goes by three titles: Frostwind Swordsman, Cavalry Captain, and Quartermaster. Kaeya is a tall young man of some build with tan skin. His visible eye is sharp and periwinkle with long eyelashes, and the same diamond-shaped pupil as Dainsleif. He has navy blue hair, accompanied by streaks of lighter blue, which he keeps back in a long ponytail that reaches his waist. His bangs are cut in a long fuge that falls over the right side of his face, and all but covers his right eye. Kaeya wears an eye patch over his eye that he claims he inherited from his grandfather, who apparently was a pirate. This is later to reveal to be a lie he told to mess with people. Kaeya's clothes are form-fitting, consisting of an open white shirt, a slim blue jacket, and tight, dark trousers. There is a black corset around his waist, and despite his shirt being collared and pinned close at the throat by a golden buckle and chain, his chest is fully framed display. He dons a cape resembling a single wing over his left shoulder, lined by a pout of fur over the right shoulder. He also wears fingerless gloves marked with the same diamond shape as his eyes, sparkly wristbands, and tall boots. His vision is attached to his right hip, and his belt with a chain and a blue earring hanging from his left ear. Notably, while other Mondstadt characters' visions feature their feathers, 3 feathers in his right wings, Kaeya's vision only has 2 feathers. His outfit, Icy Feather Flight, is described to be fashionable and festooned with a fur collar. Kaeya is an outwardly confident and charming individual, with a flair for the dramatic, and he is sometimes seen in overly laid back. He is surprisingly popular among the elderly of Mondstadt, even earning himself the title of top candidate for a grandson-in-law. He seems to get a kick out of telling that bald-faced lies, but this transit becomes a talent when it comes to his role as the brains of the Knights of the Favonius. He frequently does this with thieves and criminals, and decides whether to arrest them or let them walk free, as long as everything falls into place the way he expects in the end. Kaeya doesn't care all that much about the means. He is willing to use criminals such as the treasure hoarders to achieve his goals, but according to his informative veil, he draws the line at working with those who threaten other people's families, believing they deserve to be hunted down and destroyed. Kaeya enjoys putting people into high-stress situations and challenging their virtues, and does so to both his enemies and his allies. He takes pleasure in seeing the hesitation in his comrades' eyes in the moment just before they dive into battle with him. Just as he takes pleasure in the look of fear in his enemies' eyes as they face off against him, Kaeya's charisma and determination have earned him the aspiration, respect, and the favor of many people in Mondstadt. Although his love for provoking others has also gained him the expectation of those same people. Despite his extroversion, Kaeya appears to struggle with loneliness and shyness, though he tries to playfully distract both of those assertions made by the traveler. He appreciates the taste of alcohol and is often seen drinking when he isn't busy. He despises grape juice, claiming that the people who drink it have no taste or spoiling themselves of an exquisite drink. Although admitting that not everyone can drink alcohol until they become the age. The Memorial Blade work is Kaeya's normal attack. The normal attack performs up to 5 ripple strikes. The charge attack consumes a certain amount of stamina to unleash 2 rapid sword strikes. And plummeting attack plummets from mid-air to strike the ground below, damaging opponents among the path and dealing AoE damage upon impact. Frostna is Kaeya's elemental skill. It unleashes a fight blast, dealing cryo damage to opponents in front of Kaeya. Glacial Waltz is Kaeya's elemental burst. Sealing the frost in the air, Kaeya summoned 3 icicles that resolve 4 times around him for 8 seconds. These icicles will follow the character around and deal with cryo damage to opponents in their path for so long as they present. Cold Blooded Strike is Kaeya's first acceleration passive skill. Every hit with Frostna regenerates HP for Kaeya equals to 15% of his AT attack. Glacial Heart is Kaeya's 4th acceleration passive skill. Opponents frozen by Frostna will drop additional elemental particles. Frostna may only produce a maximum of 2 additional elemental particles per use. Hidden Strength is Kaeya's utility passive skill. It decreases sprinting stamina consumption of your characters in the party by 20%. Not stackable with passive talents that provide the exact same effects. Kaeya Outrage is an adopted son of the Rendifar family, the renowned wine tycoons. It has been a long time since he last called the Luke Rendifar brother. Kaeya currently serves as the cavalry captain of the Knights of Favonius and is trusted by Jean. Kaeya is often the one wrapping things up every incident that occurs in Mondstadt visually. It is a curious fact that your best chance of finding Kaeya is not by visiting the Knights' headquarters, but also frequenting the taverns at night. Kaeya is often found sitting at the bar gossiping with a city folk, sipping the famed Mondstadt beverage Death Afternoon. He is surprisingly popular among the elderly of Mondstadt, even earning himself the title of top candidate for a grandson-in-law. It's hard to imagine someone as mysterious, admirable, and wine-loving as Kaeya being cavalry captain of the Knights of Favonius. Hunters and bandits alike are often among Kaeya's drinking buddies. As wary of him as they may initially be, all are ultimately disarmed by his smooth talking and end up telling him everything he wants to know. Depending on what they then make private of Kaeya, their night may turn out into an uncontrollable nightmare or remain on one of the harmless benders. Everyone's got a secret, but not everyone knows what to do with it, says Kaeya with his usually arrogant smirk. This is not an absolute principle, but it is the result of smirking that fine balance between strength and strategy. As for the details of how it's done, don't worry yourself too much about that. Kaeya once said these words in front of Grandmaster Varka. As long as everything falls into place the way he expects in the end, Kaeya doesn't care all that much about the means. This cavalier attitude is what defines his character, not so unlike Death Afternoon's wild and explicit taste, one might add. However, his reckless approach to things is not uncontroversial. Once, in order to force a bandit leader into facing him directly, Kaeya triggered the wind guard at the ancient ruin to cut his opponent off, putting his own men at risk in the process. It's times like these when Jean, who puts a lot of trust in Kaeya, finds herself shaking her head in disapproval. Not that this bothers Kaeya, of course. On one contrary, he actually enjoys putting people into the difficult position of making tough decisions. He takes pleasure in seeing the hesitation in his comrades' eyes in the moment just before they dive into battle with him, just as he takes pleasure in the look of fear in his enemies' eyes as they face off against him. The flourishing winery business in Mondstadt has been a great source of prosperity in the region over the years. This prosperity often attracts greedy bandits and monsters to the area. They are a motley bunch who hide in the shadows, and their backgrounds, motives, and alleges are varied and complex. Kaeya battles against this threat to Mondstadt not only with his sword, but also with his smart and his wit. A young knight once described the years of his life to studying dreads in the round Mondstadt and reaching the astounding conclusion: when Death Afternoon is out of season due to lack of supply, the number of responded incidents inside and outside the city show a drastic decrease, and this remains the case until Death Afternoon returns to the market. The young knight showed his findings to Cavalry Captain Kaeya in hopes of getting some advice from him. Interesting, I'll look into that, Kaeya answered, with a wary smirk on his face. Generally speaking, Kaeya is easy to talk to and nice to have a conversation with. The only topic that you will never hear from him discuss is his past. Even when the Grandmaster determined information on his background, Kaeya skirted around the issue and gave only word answers devoid of details. One afternoon near the end of the summer, a decade ago, my father and I passed by the Dong Winery. "I'll go get us some grape juice for the road," he said, but he never came back. If Master Preppus hadn't taken me in, I doubt I'll have made it through the storm that night. This matter-of-fact description hides a carefully concealed lie. Kaeya has never once spoken the truth about what happened that afternoon. "This is your chance. You are our last hope." Kaeya's father squeezed his son's lean shoulders as he spoke, seemingly looking right through Kaeya's staying place far beyond. On the other side of the horizon sat their distant homeland of Conria. Kaeya would never forget the look of both hope and hatred in his father's eyes as he uttered those words. Many citizens still remember the two most eye-catching young gentlemen in all of Mondstadt a few years ago. One of them was the dapper Diluc, an elegant swordsman who always had a warm smile and a confident posture. The other was the eccentric Kaeya. He was Diluc's friend, supporter, and sounding board, ensuring he got through every challenge he faced smoothly. They were almost like twins, knowing each other's thoughts and intentions without a word, protecting Mondstadt in both light and dark. Until that fateful day, now guarded in Kaeya's memory, with the convoy that Diluc was escorting was attacked by a huge monster. It was the first and only time Kaeya failed in his duty. By the time Kaeya finally reached the Diluc, it was already over. The power their father had used to successfully fend off the monster backfired, taking their father's life. Both Kaeya and Diluc were shocked by what they had witnessed. Losing the calm conspire a knight should restrain. Even someone like Master Crepus would submit to such a dangerous and evil power. Sinister thoughts flashed through Kaeya's mind, and he simply smirked. This world is truly fascinating. All while their father lay dead in the pool of his own blood, it was on that night that the two sons' paths diverged. Between the pages of The Adventures of Angelos, you find a list of names written on a sheet of official Knights of Favonius letterhead paper. It miraculously records the details of bandits in the city and third a field, as well as were merchants and mid to senior level treasure hunters members. Listing for each entry at name, position, area of activity, and personal profile, a dozen or so names are circled, with a note in the main saying otherwise things would get too boring. When questioned about it, Kaeya's response is, I suppose I must have gotten drunk in startled, scrapping nonsense. Your gut feeling is that Kaeya's personally let you see his list, but you have no way of proving it. It was raining heavily in Mondstadt on the night that Kaeya Albrecht received his vision. Earlier that day, Crevice Randavar had wielded the power of a delusion, only to become its victim when it backfired. To set his father free from the unbearable agony, Diluc Randavar took his life. Kaeya was Diluc's brother by adoption and was always by his side. But on this occasion, Kaeya did not partake in a final moments shared between father and son. The torrential rain that set on in Mondstadt in night seemed to be a sign of the heavens' grief at the passing of Master Crepus. There was a side to Kaeya that he kept hidden from the world. In truth, he was an agent of Kaeya placed in Mondstadt to serve their interests. His father had abandoned him in this strange and unknown land to fulfill his mission, and it was Master Crepus and the city of Mondstadt that had welcomed him with open arms when they found him. If Kaeya and Mondstadt went to war, which side should he support? To whom should he offer his assistance? His birth father, who had recklessly abandoned him, or his adopted father, who loved him and raised him? For the longest time, Kaeya had organized over these important questions. Caught between the opposing demands of loyalty and duty, faced with the impossible choice between truth and happiness. But now, Crepus' death upset this discredited balance. He felt liberated, but also ashamed of how selfishly he was responding. As an adopted son, he should have saved Crepus, but he had arrived moments too late. As a brother, he should have shared in Diluc's grief, and yet as their father lay dying on the ground, he had hung back behind his brother, that ancient plot running through his mind. Consumed by guilt, Kaeya knocked on Diluc's door as the rain poured down. The shout of sanity was washed away as lies were revealed. Kaeya had finally come clean. He had encapsulated Diluc's anger. The brothers drew their blades, this time pointing them at each other. Kaeya felt that this was his punishment for a lifetime of lies, but also the two crossed blades. Kaeya was overcome by this situation of great elemental power. Surging drew him. For years he had stayed out of the way in his brother's shadow. But now, for the first time ever, he was facing his brother as his true self. Brutally cold and brute elemental energy burst forth from the tip of his sword. To meet Diluc's scowling flames ahead on. The clash of charisma, fire, and assumed ice created a sudden swirl of wind that shunned them both. This was a grim moment at which Kaeya's vision appeared. Since that, Kaeya and Diluc have gone their separate ways, but he never discusses it, just as he never discusses the origin of his vision, though it is a reminder of the hard-fought battle and the price that he earned in exchange for revealing the undoubtedly truth. Kaeya sees it was the stern reminder that he must live the rest of his life under the wavery burden of lies. Albrecht, Kaeya's family name, is a German name which means ruler of the supernatural beings, elves. In a Germanic legend, Albrecht was a dwarf that guarded Nibling's treasure. Albrecht was also the name of a prominent character in Der Rein reading the Nibelungen, a cycle of musical dreams composed by Richard Wagner. Kaeya's constellation, Ovalo Celis, is Latin for peacock eye spot. Fact 1. Kaeya's favorite wine is Death Afternoon, a particularly strong wine. Fact 2. The Steamboat Travat food notes column, which are blog posts on the Chinese official site, commemorated Kaeya's birthday with a real-life recipe for fruity skewers in Death Afternoon. Fact 3. The Travat food notes are written in character with Long Ergen, the traveler, as its columnist after the West Way for Death Afternoon. Long Ergen remarks that he can't drink it. Fact 4. In the Chinese version, Kaeya is referred to as Diluc Yeti, sworn younger brother. It indicates that he is likely to be younger than Diluc, though necessary so far. For example, the birth year of Guan Yu, a sworn younger brother of Liu Bei, was tremendously considered to be 160. Well, I think that is all on Kaeya today. Next time, we will talk about Lisa. If you have a book not given on time of its due date, you are dead. Anyways, see ya guys.